Just this week, you've probably had this thought creep into your mind.
There has to be a better way to do this.
Maybe not just better, but faster, more direct, more efficient.
Fortunately, humans have needed to deal with fewer and fewer of these frustrations over the years.
Because computers have taken over many of these routine tasks, and they don't complain. That's their job.
But just because computers are doing it doesn't mean it's a problem solved.
Computers run on algorithms, which are a series of steps to solve problems.
That sounds great in theory, but there's a dilemma.
Algorithms are only as good as their designers.
However, there's still a lot we can learn from computer operations like sorting, saving, and scheduling.
So let's dig deeper into these and many more here in Algorithms to Live By, the computer science of human decisions. Welcome back. You're listening to Motivation Minute, where we unravel the timeless truths in that stack of books you've been wanting to read so that you don't have to. And this week, it's myself, Spencer Harrow. I'm a software engineer, and get this, it's a book on software engineering. So this is finally a book in my niche. And I'm joined by Jariah Miller, who's a small business owner who's not into software. So it's a book not in his niche, but he has quite a bit to say about the principles. So welcome back, Jariah.
Hey, Spencer. That's a cool introduction.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, I thought that was a cool cool introduction or cool subtitle to the book, The Computer Science of Human Decisions.
It's kind of funny because you don't think about humans with computer science, and to put that together was a clever thing, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was neat the way it kind of just showed some simple algorithms, and then it's like how you can actually use those to make a decision or priorities or organizing. It's kind of cool.
I wrote down a bunch of algorithms. We're probably only going to get down to a few of them, but I thought it'd be fun to start with the most interesting of all the algorithms, which was the look or leap algorithm.
Okay.
So they call this the secretary problem in some circles because it involves a secretary, as you can imagine, who's looking for a job candidate, and she's put out a job posting and she's taking in applications. Well, she has to decide which applicant to give the offer to. And the interesting thing about this is once she's considered one applicant and says no, she can't go back. So let's say she talks to the first person, then she starts talking to the second person. The first one isn't an option anymore. So that changes the problem because if you could go back, you could find the best candidate. But since you can't go back, you don't know who the best is in the future or if you already gave up the best candidate. How do you solve that problem? Well, you have to pick the optimal solution, which you're like, well, what could be optimal about this? Well, it turns out, given these parameters, that the best point to start looking at a candidate is at 37%. So what that means is you wait until you're 37% through your data and you don't pick anyone in that first 37%. And then once you get to 37, you look at each person afterward, case by case, and if any one of them is any better than the best of the first 37%, you jump for them. If they're not, you skip.
Okay.
You keep doing this until you find a better person than what you've already looked at.
Interesting.
Because it's optimal.
So it's just
at that point.
It's just a mathematical way of making sure that you have all the information necessary. You don't want to wait too long, but you also don't want to make the decision too early for fear of missing out.
Because we don't have time to wait too long.
And you can't
we
wait
have to make this decision.
You can't wait till you review every single one. That might take like a month, or if you're gonna doing 100 people, so you don't have that much time. So like, when is the best time to make your decision? So once you have 40 or 37%.
What 37%?
37% of the information. Once you have that much, so I guess how you would apply that is with any decision, I guess, right? You do research. You spend time researching, and I've noticed this for myself. I will actually oftentimes research way too much, or
I do that too.
To where I think I want to look at what camera do I want to buy, and I'm like, So I watch all these videos and all these cameras.
All the YouTube videos, all the Amazon reviews, and you read them over and over, and you start analyzing what the people said and why they said it the way they said it, what they really think compared to what they wrote, if they were a bot that was writing that review as opposed to a real person who knows what they're doing. We get way too deep in reviewing.
Yeah.
That's a thing where we overanalyze.
I feel like my business partner and I both do this way too much. And I've been trying to think, look, we don't need to watch all these videos. And the answer is not always to just gather in more information, because you'll just waste time and you'll never actually get anything done. So sometimes the answer is just to quickly skim the information.
But how much time should we think about waiting for it? Because time is free to a certain extent. And if you're given the choice to get the better option by putting a little more time in, not that you know that option is there, but if you have the chance of seeing that option, is it worth it?
Well, I think that's like the perfectionist mindset, where you have to have everything perfect, where you think, oh, I can't make a bad decision here, and you're scared, and then that never works out if you have that mindset. So I like the point about, how do you make that objective, once you know I've looked at 37% of the information. But I guess...
Yeah, who are we to know?
But for me, I think that's just going to be cutting back a little bit from what I normally do.
Yeah.
So many things that I do when it comes to researching, like and it's good to know things, but I'll research, all these different cameras or ways of video editing for my business that I never end up using. I'm just doing all these things that don't actually apply, or just researching other random things that don't apply to what I'm trying to work on. And there's some people that I know that I'm not going to mention any names, but they're not that, intellectual, smart, whatever. They don't or not smart, but they don't just research random, abstract philosophies. They just do their work that they're doing, and they're really focused, and they're really kind of just focused. They get their work done, and they're really efficient, and they get a lot of things done because they don't spend time researching and thinking and just, whatever, not that that's bad, but I guess you can just see that.
So they're just knocking it out.
Yeah.
Versus finding the best way to knock it out.
Sometimes it's better to do that. To just jump in and just start, just do it.
Yeah, that's true. I would always make the case to work smarter, not harder. But I end up working a lot harder at trying to be smarter than actually taking out the hardness of the work. So on this kind of concept of how to work, well, the book talked about staying on the bottom of things. Kind of funny to say that, isn't it? We usually say, I'll stay on top of it. But the book said your goal should be to stay on the bottom of everything.
Okay.
And then get caught up over a very fixed tight period to where you're on top of it again.
Okay.
Because it's working on one thing at a time, not working on 10 things simultaneously, trying to stay on top of them. There's days at work where I'm managing email super effectively. I am talking to multiple departments, getting stuff done, communicating back and forth. But how did I do that? I had to be away from my desk the entire day, walking all over the place, trying to find the right people at the right time to talk to. Whereas I could have been picking one problem to solve and nose to the grindstone all day and fix it 100% so that it's never a problem ever again and we don't have to talk about it, and then move on to the next problem.
Yeah, and then I guess there's that debate that people would have is which is better? Which is better, multitasking, doing everything at once, or just focusing on one thing all day? And I think you could make a case that depending on the situation, one is better than the other, but what's the best in your mind is generally? So
I feel like the best is to be focused on everything at once, but it's the worst thing you could do to yourself. Because I always wish I could be on top of everything because it feels good to be on top of everything. But I find those days that I'm really on top of nothing when I'm on top of everything.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. There are guys at work that are really good multitaskers. I am not a good multitasker. I am good when you put me on something, and not by choice. I would like to be a good multitasker.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the more I'm switching, the more I get distracted and lose my momentum.
Same here. I'm not good at multitasking at all. You know, when I'm trying to, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna watch this video on the side while I check my emails, and then I totally miss what the video said, and I miss the emails.
Yeah, you're on the email totally, then you miss the email because you saw the video. Like, there is no such thing as
some
being
people
in
are
both all
better,
at
I think.
once.
But yeah, it talked about time management and like based on some algorithms, how should you manage your time? Like, and it gave some like good ways to think about, like, where do you start when you're thinking about your priorities? What do I want to get done this week, or like, what should I focus on? And it talked about a few different methods. One is based on the earliest due date. So you have all your projects. You make a list of which has the earliest deadline. We'll just focus on that.
That's how I do it.
Just focus on that. So it says that's a good one. Just focus on the earliest due date. And for me, I guess I'm lost at this one even because oftentimes I don't even make any deadlines. I know what I'm supposed to do in the back of my mind, but I don't actually make deadlines. So doing that would be great for me because I would write down, and I'm starting to do this, write down all my projects so I have a list, and then rank them by priority.
Yeah,
and then
I can see how that would be helpful.
And then do the first one, the one with the earliest deadline. But it said if that doesn't work, or sometimes that's not the best, let's say it's too late and you just can't get the one you wanted done right away. So it said the other one is it's called Moore's algorithm, but you focus on the biggest or the one that's going to take the longest time. I think you do that first, and then that way it frees up a bunch of time. So even though it's not the highest priority, it's going to take the biggest amount of time and so you just work on that till it's done.
I think I do a hybrid approach. I do that Moore's algorithm, the biggest thing first, where if it's a big thing, it's a sticky note on my laptop. Like, I literally have, right now I think I have 2 little sticky notes and 1 giant sticky note on my laptop with things that I have to get done this week.
I feel like I need to do that because there's all these other things that are actually a higher priority. It's like I need to get these done sooner. I should, but
here's the thing: they don't have an early due date, so they're there so that I am aware of them and that they're big, and I don't want to lose them in the shuffle. But I'm not doing them just because they're on my sticky note. That's my problem. I'll put it on a sticky note and then I won't do it.
Yeah. But if I actually
putting it on a sticky note feels like it got done.
I should just, even though there's those little things I want to work on, these little tiny things that seem fulfilling. They're like, ooh, I could change the name on change my profile picture on my YouTube channel or something. But I should just ignore those and just do the one that's the hardest thing, or that's going to take the most amount of time that I know I need to get done in the next week or two, but just get it done now. That way you free up a bunch of time. So that's the other method.
You remember, actually, one of the books we read a long time ago, which was The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People or Effective People. I forget what the title is. That one had the grid of you arrange your life in what's important and urgent, or not important and not urgent. You always focus on the urgent and important tasks, and then you try to focus on the non-urgent yet important tasks next.
Okay.
Those are the big ones that don't have a deadline.
That is a really good way to put it. Like it's like a new revelation. I remember that, but like there's so many things that are urgent for me that are not important, or I feel they're urgent, or I want to do it just because it's kind of fun to do it. Like, I need to get new silverware or new cups, so I'm gonna drive to town and get those. And it feels fulfilling, but it's not a big accomplishment, I could do that later, but it's like I don't like waiting, so I'll just do it right now. And that's a really bad thing to do things like that.
Well, to sum it up, what I found interesting was I came into this book thinking, finally, a book about how to optimize my life. That has been like, if you were to put one word next to my name, my goal has always been optimize. But I realized at the end of the book that it's impossible to optimize your life, because a computer can't optimize anything unless you make some assumptions, bias simple solutions, trade the cost of error versus the cost of delaying, and take some risks. If you do those 4 things, you can optimize, but you're never going to optimize in the fully positive sense where you found the very best. you're going to find the very best considering these factors. Because when you think about it, the computer has to make the decision and it has too many variables to decide between. So it has to pick an algorithm so that it has somewhere to start, and so that would give it a better solution than not having any plan at all. And I really don't like that you'll never find the very best. But
yeah, I find it interesting how computers can make decisions. It was saying, like the one we talked a little bit about game theory, and this example of prisoner's dilemma, where two prisoners are offered a deal to be set free if they tell on their partner in crime. They will receive a very long sentence if they remain silent and their partner tells on them, or a shorter sentence if both of them stay silent. And it said, the best overall solution would be to stay silent, but because each individual has a chance of being free, rational people will always betray the other party, and thus both lose. But so this is interesting because, they don't know. The reason this is interesting is because neither party knows that they're being asked this question, and so they have to make a guess because there's no communication. Oh, wait, are they going to tell on me, or should I tell on them? What's the best decision here? And if you're not communicating, or let's say it's someone you don't know if they're you don't know if they're going to tell on you. You don't know their character, so you have to make a decision for yourself. But then both parties lose if you end up telling on the other person. So, and this
you're both equally bewildered because you don't know what the other person's doing.
I just found that interesting. And then it said, so how you can apply this in real life is that, in real life people tend to cooperate because if you communicate, you know what the other person's thinking, and you can make a decision that's good for both of you. So, and it said you should try, if you're in a business or something, you need to get both parties to talk. So when this is a problem is when there's a tension building up in a company or in a relationship where both parties aren't communicating. It's so simple. It's like without communication, you don't know what the other person's thinking, and so you're going to make a wrong decision that's going to hurt both of you. And that's all the drama that happens. So it's just knowing this principle, or like algorithm or whatever.
It's an assumption that we know based on rationality, which that's a thing. That was part of you can't optimize your life unless you make some assumptions. So if you never made that assumption, where would you be? You would still be stuck trying to figure out, is this better or is this better? And that's what I found interesting. Like even the 37% rule, where you miss some of the candidates if you jump too early. Well, the sobering fact about that is you will still miss 63% of the time, even though you optimized it to the 37%, where after 37% you pick someone who's better than any of the previous 37%. You're still knowingly giving up 63% later, which might have the star candidate you're looking for.
So let's say you just make a decision in the first 10%. Is that then you have a bigger chance of getting a
failure
worse candidate. Okay. Well, yeah, recently my family's business, they were trying to hire some people, and they've hired a few people in the past just by the first person that came. They put an ad out, first person that came, they're like, oh, this guy's okay. I hired him. And I guess sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But like, where should you, if you're looking to hire some people, let's say, you don't just go with the first person, right? You should.
Right. You probably shouldn't go with the first person. You probably should actually, like the book was talking about, I think the book said this, don't make your first interview like everything. Like make it your practice interview. Even if it's the company you would dream of working for, make it your practice. Because before you've interviewed, you don't have any baseline to gauge any companies off of. But suddenly you have a baseline when you get to the interview. I did that when I was job hunting. I took an interview. They actually gave me an offer after it, and I just didn't accept it. I made that my baseline. And then I looked at all my other offers relative to that baseline.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had a baseline, when they gave me the offer, I'm like, should I take this? I don't have a baseline. If I don't have a baseline, I should just take this because it's the best thing I have because I have nothing else. But I decided to say no at risk, and sure enough, I think it was 2 or 3 months later, which was a long 2 or 3 months at the time, I had 2 additional offers, which I had a baseline to look at them relative to, and I found a better one that way because I decided to wait.
Interesting.
And not jump too early.
Yeah.
But that's the hard thing because because you don't know if you just gave up your best one. So it's a mental discipline to kind of get past that nagging worry.
Yeah. I've always had that worry with a lot of things, the fear of missing out. Even in the podcast sometimes I'm like, oh, I still have more notes. We can't miss these notes that I have. But sometimes, you have to cut it short. You have to end, you can't just, you'll always miss out on something to make a good decision, I guess. There's always something possibly better, but you can't, it's impossible to get to 100% perfection. So you have to make a cutoff point.
Unless you have all the time in the world, then it would work.
But you don't have all the time in the world.
So that's the good thing for our listeners, because they don't have to miss out on anything, because we have an episode like this every week, and for them, they could just download this right on their podcast app. So if you haven't already, just tap subscribe so that you don't miss out, because you don't have to have infinite time to listen to us. And we hope you have enjoyed this, and it's all right there at your fingertips. You won't have to worry about this problem of listening to 37% of our episodes to see if you listened to the best one, because you can hear them all.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
And when it comes to the reading books, sure, you could read the whole book and get 100% of the information. You probably won't remember it all, or you can listen to a podcast, which is going to be 100 times faster and easier for you, and you're still going to retain at least 37% of the information, which is just what you need.
and you can skim the book with our motivationminute.com checklist, which you should check out if you haven't already, on how to read a book in 3 hours or less and get 37% of the content, knowingly giving up 63% that you could have had, but you got the optimum 37%.
You don't need 100% of the book, because
you don't need 100% because there's 100% somewhere else you need.
And most of that 100% isn't that valuable anyway. You only need 37%, which is the most important part of the book, which is what we talk about. So it's just perfect.
But what I do want to say, Jiraiya, is we do care about 100% of all of you.
Exactly.
Because we don't want to just care about the first 37% that listen. It's important that you're all considered, and we do appreciate all of you listening. And you all have a chance to come on the podcast as a guest if you go to our survey, motivationminute.com.
You do all have a chance.
Tap the survey button.
But I highly doubt that more than 37% of our listeners will be a guest. So
maybe 3.7%.
So if you want to be one of those guests, just take the survey. Let us know that you want to be on the podcast.
And tell us what book you want to feature, because the books we talk about, we're only getting 37% of them looking ourselves. We need the 63% from you guys, or the 100% that are the best books that we're completely missing.
Cool. Well, I'm getting confused with all this percent stuff. So,
but thank you for helping optimize our podcast by being a listener and driving the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.